My name is Matt. I'm from Southeast Michigan District Office. For the Water Resources Division of the DEQ, I play kind of a lot of positions. So today I'm here as your Part 5 coordinator. I was blessed with this position about 2 years ago. And so here I am today to hopefully help you out. I got about 45 slides, about 35 minutes to go through them. So I'm going to try to go quick. Last time I did this presentation, I didn't get through them all. So I'm going to go quick and then maybe we can settle down at the end. So an overview, Part 5 is promulgated under Part 31, which is Water Resources Protection. They're self-implementing, no applications or approvals. It's self-compliance. It's based on you to be in compliance with these rules. No discharges authorized, so there's no permits issued. That's very important to remember and could be one of the key points that you bring home from this presentation today. Basic requirements, spill prevention and control, secondary containment, and spill notification. So applicability, who is required and what materials are regulated? Who's regulated? Temporary or permanent land-based facilities. And these can be split into two different facilities, oil-based facility and an on-land facility, and we'll go over those later. You must receive, use, store, ship, process a polluting material in excess of TMQ. And that is how you become applicable to the Part 5 rules. If on your facility you don't have anything that's above the TMQs, you're not subject to the rules. That's very important to remember. And we work with facilities on that. We ask them, oh, what's your threshold? Oh, we have 460 pounds of this material on our site, where 440 pounds is the threshold. Remove 60 pounds, be under the threshold. It's self-regulating. We are okay with that. You know, you don't hear that a lot from the DEQ, right? But it's self-regulating, it's self-compliance. And then also polluting materials. Polluting materials, oil, salt, or any material you find in Table 1 at the end of the rules. Who is not regulated? There are specific exemptions. Recreational marinas, oil fields, transportation-related facilities such as pipelines, electrical equipment, but electrical equipment has to be in use. And then there's also conditional exemptions that excuse you from the PIPP requirements, and we'll go over that later. What is regulated? Polluting materials, oil, salt, Table 1 compounds. We'll get into these a little bit later. Oils, petroleum, fuel, oily sludge, grease. You can see them up there. Salt, any kind of salt you can think about, it's going to be up there. Table 1 materials, there's 950 materials in Table 1. So we're going to go through each one right now and talk about them. No, actually it's not. Alphabetical order, or if you get the document, you can download the document off our website and get it in like a Word format. You can research it by cast number if you want. That will help. And it's important to note that there's not every material in the world on that list. We tried, things changed. I just had a call last week of somebody who had material on the list, but the word poly was in front of it, so it wasn't on the list. What do we do then? Those are the kind of questions that we need to work through as the compliance and regulatory, is concerned, and those are the ones I'm saying that fall between the cracks, and we have to work through them. Threshold management quantities, oil storage, 1,320 gallons. Who knows what's special about 1,320 gallons of oil on your site? Subject to SPCC, spill prevention, control and countermeasures. That's the EPA form of managing oil. Or a single tank of 660 gallons. Salt, 5 tons, or liquid, 1,000 gallons. 5 tons isn't that much. So a lot of us are familiar with the satellite salt storage you see at Walmart or Home Depot that the landscaping company keeps for the wintertime. We struggle with those. Those are a big source of compliance issues that we have. A lot of times those are over 5 tons. Those have to be underneath the rules. Table 1 compounds. So for your threshold management quantities, if you're outdoors, or indoors, if you're indoors, your TMQ for any compound from Table 1 is 2,200 pounds. And then your TMQ for anything outside is 440 pounds. Everyone can see the obvious reason why. You're indoors, have more control, more protection. Outside, we don't want you to store as much outside. And then when you're calculating your threshold management quantity, it's important to know your percentage of your compound. So you say, I have 18% of this compound that's in a solution, in a 1,000-gallon solution. You don't take 18% of that 1,000 gallons. You consider that whole 1,000 gallons towards your TMQ. That's very important to note. What is not regulated? Exemptions. Manufactured items are solids. It's important to note that those are solids that don't leach, so salt leaches, so it's under the rules. Small containers, 10 gallons or 100 pounds. Big box stores, Home Depot, right? Get paint, salt, anything like that. Oil subject to SPCC. Hazard waste subject to Part 111. So these ones in yellow. Anyone know why those are in yellow? There are other sets of regulations, okay? So under the Part 5 rules, if you're subject to other sets of regulations, specifically these regulations have other forms of controls in these regulations that we consider to be in compliance with Part 5. They have secondary containment requirements, they have storage requirements, and so we, in a sense, consider those to be in compliance with Part 5. So it's very important to understand, though, that this is just for those materials. If you have other materials from like Table 1, you still have to have a PIPP. On-land facility, salt and chemicals, oil storage facility, oil. We talked about that earlier, so that's the biggest, that's the definition. If you look at the definition, it's like a paragraph. This is basically broke down to that. So on-land storage facility, it's salt, in Table 1. Storage facility, it's oil. One thing to understand when you read the definition is it says temporary or permanent operations. We get questions about the word temporary. That's something we're gonna have to talk through. 30 days. I had a call last week from DNR, forest operations in the forest. They're in one place for a day. I told them, I don't think you're subject to the Part 5 rules. I mean, if you're moving around. So we're looking at kind of more of the 30-day temporary type situation. On-land facilities, salt and chemicals. So if you're on-land facility, this is what you're subject to. Surveillance, secondary containment, your pollution incident prevention plan, the PIPP, which is under Rule 7 of the Part 5 rules. We'll go over that later. And then release reporting. Oil storage facilities must comply with only portions of Part 5. This is what we struggle with the most because we try to mirror with SPCC. So if you look at these three requirements, surveillance, use area and storage, release reporting, what don't we see up here? The PIPP, the Pollution Incident Prevention Plan. And for Part 5 rules, that is the hardest thing to be in compliance with, is having your PIPP in place. If you store only oil at your facility and you are in compliance with SPCC and you have an approved plan that was developed by an engineer, you are exempt from the PIPP requirements in Part 5 only. Not all of Part 5. You still have to do surveillance, use area, and release reporting. So if there's anything I want you to take home from that, it would be that. There it is. Surveillance. What does surveillance mean? It's adequate surveillance processes. Could be cameras, could be daily inspections, could be 3 shifts, 24 hours a day, just some sort of surveillance of your storage areas. Salt and chemicals, liquid outdoor storage, indoor storage, and use areas, solids. We'll go through each of these right now. Liquid outdoor storage. You want your secondary containment to be compatible and impervious to what's being stored. That is very important. Just a quick story. I had a wastewater treatment plant, or a water treatment plant, storing ferric chloride, which is corrosive. They had a leak in their tank, ate through their secondary containment walls, ate through their exterior walls of their building, went outside and overland flow into the St. Clair River. Like one of those situations, like you don't think it's ever gonna happen, and it happened, right? Follow up with Part 5 and also as a release under Part 31, come to find out their secondary containment was not compatible with what was being stored, and it was a fault of the engineer and the post-inspection of the construction of that containment facility. So it's very important that you have your secondary containment to be compatible with what you're storing. Secondary containment needs to be greater than 10% total volume or 100% of your largest tank. It's pretty straightforward. And surveillance, leak detection, precipitation management. Precipitation management is really important. And this is often overlooked with Part 5 facilities. Regular inspections, discharge procedures. A lot of times we like to see these in your PIPPs. When are you going to discharge? Who's going to discharge? Stormwater permits. Sometimes you have to have a stormwater permit in order to discharge your secondary containment, depending on where you discharge it to. So call us if you're not sure. Monitoring requirements. So everyone loves pictures and presentations. Take a look at this picture. Does anyone see anything wrong with this picture at all? At all? Tank, secondary containment? No, it's actually pretty good, right? Pretty good. The only thing that we might point out is this right here, right? The fill nozzle outside of secondary containment. Could that be a possible issue? Yes. Are we going to make this facility completely revamp their secondary containment? No, we're not. You know, let's be honest, we're not. Are we going to ask them to have a spill kit close by? Yes. So again, some of the things that we can work with you on the Part 5 rules. How about this one? Gasoline, keep away. Looks like a diesel tank, side of the road. Anyone see any issues with this? Precipitation, exactly. Look at those secondary containment, full of water. These tanks are full right here and it leaks down, it's going to get released no matter what. And again, one other thing about this picture, this would be for the people who are in the moderate to expert level of Part 5 rules. Anyone else know what's wrong with this picture?
Located pretty high up.
Pretty high up?
So I'm assuming the gravity feed tanks.
Yeah, they are. We don't specifically talk about the Part 5 rules. It's gasoline and diesel, FLCL, flexible combustible liquids. Those are actually regulated under a different code. And those were in the conditional exemptions, the yellow font. Those are some of the rules and regulations that if you're in compliance with your tanks under those codes, we consider you to be exempt for the PIPP portions only. But I'd like to point that out. Okay, what about this picture right here? It's kind of hard. Resolution of projectors is hard to see this stuff. Anyone see the issue here with secondary containment? Sorry, now I'm standing in front of everybody. Okay, right here you can't, I'm losing my, right here, there's a little hole, you see that? So clearly, I mean, the secondary containment's not being managed right. You can see the stain. So if I was at your facility and I saw this, if it wasn't a gasoline tank, you know, we would say, hey, this is a violation of your Part 5. There it is. Secondary containment, indoor storage and use areas. So if you look at your TMQs under the Part 5 rules, indoor storage you're allowed 2,200 pounds. Outdoor you're allowed 440 pounds. This is why. Indoor storage, you design, construct, and maintain, prevent, and release directly or indirectly to waters of the state. So we consider your building, if you're storing indoor, to be secondary containment. Okay? You have more control. You don't have precipitation management to worry about. But you still have to design and maintain that building as if it was secondary containment. So if you have tanks that are right next to a roll-up door with no berm or spill kit next to that roll-up door, we're going to say you're in violation of Part 5. So here's another picture for you. Anyone see the issue with this indoor storage? Yeah, there's a nice fat drain right there, right? So we get this call a lot. Oh, I have a drain on site, but it goes to sanitary sewage. Or I have a drain on site, it goes to stormwater. Inside my room that I store indoors. If it goes to sanitary sewage or it goes to stormwater, then that's not considered indoors. It says specifically in the definition that it cannot have access or not be discharged. Now, one way around it is if this goes to sanitary, you know, could you work through your IPP program in your local POTW? Maybe. Or could you just cover that drain or remove it? Yeah, why not? Anything wrong with this picture? No, it's pretty good. It's a good picture. It's a loading station. We got secondary containment. We got the hose, nozzle. We got squirt protection. You know, pretty good. Pretty good. Secondary containment of solids. Just trying to prevent no discharge. Okay? And when we're talking solids here, mostly we're talking about salt. I'm going to switch because I feel like I'm standing in front of you guys all the time. No discharge. There's requirements about your location, the stream or wetland isolation, 50 feet, and also a 100-year flood plan. We try not to get you to build in a 100-year flood plan. In fact, today, if you try to build something in a 100-year flood plan, we have a program in the DEQ. It's probably not going to let you do it. But there are some historical buildings that are still in the 100-year flood plan. So another what's wrong picture, pretty obvious. This berm is pretty not very good. I mean, you can see it spilling over right here. River's right here. I don't know where this picture's taken at, so we can't blame anybody. Zilwaukee Bridge. See, I thought about that earlier. So, hopefully it's not anybody's facility, sorry. On average, salt piles lose the 4 to 5% of their pile a year if it's not covered. Where do we think that 4 to 5% is going? That's the purpose of the Part 5 rules. There's this one. I call anyone an engineer in here? Yeah? I always say engineers like this. It's clean, it's pretty, has all the right mechanisms. I mean, if you're storing salt, this is what we like to see. If I walk up to your site and I see you're storing salt in this, I'm gonna keep walking. You know, done. Good, looks good. How about this one? We see these a lot too. Pole barn style. These are popular at road commissions or like, you know, city commissions. It's pretty good, you know. One of the things we worry about, these are slats right here. So with this, we would just say, you know, right here, watch your spill out or your track out, and maybe just increase your surveillance. But for the most part, you got a good roof on it, 4 walls. At least it's not this. So again, going back to the satellite facilities, this is what we see in the parking lots all the time, right? These 3-walled concrete blocks. We try to discourage these. If you decide to use them, I'm going to ask you to try to put some sort of foam in these cracks or hydraulic cement, put a tarp over it. We understand it's temporary. We're here to work with you. We're here to maintain compliance, but we're also here to protect waters of the state. So if I come out and I see that it looks like this, we're going to ask you to redo it, remove it, or do something else. But we have seen some satellite facilities in parking lots that are pretty good and maintained pretty well. Okay, Rule 7 of Part 5 rules, the PIPP. This is what we need to have in a PIPP. Basic facility info, name, number, contact, detailed site map. Where's your discrete areas? Where's your use areas? Where's the storage areas? Where's the streams? Where's the lakes? Where's the on-site retention ponds? Where's your drains? Your manholes? Polluting material inventory. This is the most difficult one to maintain for your PIPP, especially for the facilities that are constantly in and out. Rail yards, polymer facilities that are constantly bringing in, mixing, sending out. We understand that this is a difficult mechanism of the PIPP to be in compliance with, but we also feel it be the most important. What? Secondary containment description. What's your secondary containment made of? What's it designed for? What's the capacity? Precipitation management, we went over that already, but still we'd like to see it in your PIPP. Security measures, same thing as surveillance. Emergency notification procedures, this is very important. Who are you going to call? What, and then the next one, what spill cleanup procedures do you have in place? So what emergency response contractor are you going to call? You're going to call the LAPC? Are you going to call the fire department? The question in most of those answers is yes, but it's nice to have those procedures in your PIPP. One thing that we don't have up here that's not required by the PIPP that I highly recommend are your TRQs for your facility that you have on site. We're going to go over TRQs here in a little bit, the threshold reporting quantities, or the quantities that you release that makes you notify a release. If you are a facility that has the same materials all the time, that helps to have those TRQs in your PIPP. So if you have a release, you're not sitting there struggling to do the calculation as it's pouring out onto the ground to know if you need to call it or not. Have it in your PIPP, look at it. Okay, this material TRQ is this. We obviously have exceeded that, let's call. Not required, but we recommend it. So the PIPP notifications. So you don't need to submit your PIPP. That's the misconception that we get a lot. You just need to notify and certify with us through a letter that you have it on site and it's been reviewed. County Health Department, just notify. LAPC, you just notify. Your letter to the DEQ is the only one that's called a certification. PIPP updates every 3 years or after release. Most of the times that we go out and do Part 5 inspections are after a release. I will admit, we are not actively, or it's not a big push of ours to be going out and doing Part 5 inspections for only Part 5. We'll ask you Part 5 questions during a client sampling inspection or during a recon inspection if you are an NPDES permitted facility. But if you have a release and you don't have a permit, which is very common, you don't have to have an NPDES permit to have a release, we're going to ask you if you have a PIPP or an SPCC. And then if you have to revise it, you re-notify and recertify the DEQ. So release reportings, this is what I was just saying after the TMQ. You call P's, 1-800-292-4706. A lot of times if you're in Southeast Michigan, it'll be me that's calling you back. 911 and written report. We know, we understand, I'm gonna admit it, 911 is a headache. It is, honestly we do. It could be something that is not dangerous, but it's part of the rules. As part of the stakeholder process that went through 2013-2015, the call to 911 was one of the items that was very intensely looked at, and it will change if we can get the rules changed. And then obviously written report within 10 days. Written report, what happened, how'd you address it, how you can prevent it in the future. Those are the main three things we're going to look at. All right, release reporting. Definition of release. If you're familiar with Part 201, it's the same definition. Spilling, leaking, pumping into the environment. Now we have certain exemptions to release, and this is where the rules get fuzzy. Permitted discharges, air emissions, less than 1,000 gallons of polluting material into a secondary containment if it's cleaned up. 55 gallons of oil to ground, or less than 55 gallons of oil to ground or water if effectively cleaned up immediately. Now if you look at the rules, for those of you who are familiar with the rules, you have to catch or notice the release within 24 hours and have it cleaned up within 72 hours in order for you to meet this exemption. Oil to the ground, greater than 50 pounds is considered a TRQ, and then to waters of the state, any quantity that causes a sheen. Release reporting TRQ, salt, greater than 50 pounds, liquid, greater than 50 gallons. And then for Table 1 compounds, there's specific TRQs for your Table 1 compounds, and that's why we have Table 1 in there. If you look at your Table 1, you have the name of the compound, the CAS number, and then the TRQ. And again, the stakeholder group that was commenced a couple years ago, the TRQs under Table 1 were reviewed by the Water Resources Division toxicologist to come up with a science-based TRQ. The regulated community came at us and said that they were concerned about the TRQs under Table 1 because they were an arbitrary number, which at the time they were. And so we went and we got a scientific backing for each TRQ. And so if the new rules ever do get put into place, you'll notice that a lot of the TRQs have changed. Some went up. So some went against what you would say, regulatory. Some went down to the benefit of the regulated community. Some stayed the same, which both sides of the table were willing to accept. Enforcement. Person who violates any provision of the rules, this is very similar to many of your environmental provisions. The maximum fine imposed can be $25,000. I had a question last time, someone asking, have we ever done that before? Yeah, we've actually gone after people under Part 5. So we can do that. Here we are, the Part 5 updates, Office Regulatory Reinvention. This was kicked off when Snyder first came into office, identified the Part 5 rules as a group of regulations that was burdensome and that needed to get a good and close review. And so the DEQ commenced a stakeholder group that lasted about 2 years. I was the DEQ rep with that group, and legislative action is required, and that's currently where we're at right now. There is a new version of rules that are sitting on a desk ready to go, but we need legislative action. And when I say legislative action, Part 5 are rules. They're rules of Part 31. Part 31 is statute. What was looking to happen is to get some limited rulemaking authority given to the DEQ, and we had a set group of rules that we were going to update, and Part 5 was going to be one of them. That was before the situation that the DEQ incurred this last year. So I think a lot of this stuff is still on people's minds, just not the most important thing right now. So summary that we went through today is the facility regulated. What's the nature of the business, any exemptions, what materials you have on site, quantities, your thresholds for your salt, liquids, oils, your listed chemicals in Table 1. Those are your indoor and outdoor TMQs. What are the requirements? Surveillance, security, and release reporting for oil only, and then all three of those plus the PIPP requirement for your on land facilities. Part 5 resources. You can go to our DEQ website. On there you're going to find the actual promulgated Part 5 rules as they are in effect right now. We have information packets, we have operational guidances, guidance to salt storage requirements for small commercial, and we have other Part 5 guidance up there too. I just didn't list them all. We have Part 5 guidance to sulfuric acid and forklifts. We have Part 5 guidance to city-owned operation services. So we have a good array of Part 5 guidance. And if and when the new rules ever get put into play, we'll have to go through and review, and update all those guidance documents. And again, the release notification requirements in Michigan. As many of you may know, Part 5 is just one set of rules that requires to report releases. Here's your Part 5 contacts. I'm in Southeast Michigan, but I'm also the statewide coordinator. Due to the amount of facilities we have in Southeast Michigan, we have another person up there, Ryan Schwab, Ryan Blazek, Kalamazoo, Randy Conroy, Upper Peninsula. I have to update the Lansing. That's no longer accurate, so I apologize for that. I actually just found that out this morning. So, and then many of you in this area, Brian, Cadillac, Keith Noble, Saginaw Bay, Jeff and Jackson, and Ryan Grant, Grand Rapids. Or you can just call me. It tends to happen a lot. People just see my name as a statewide coordinator and give me a call. Thanks. Thank you.